I'm Eusebius Makaiza. I'm here at the 2016 Old Mutual Wisdom Forum, and it's a great pleasure to be in conversation for a couple of minutes with well-known South Africa scenario planner and commentator, JP Landman. JP, good evening.
Hello, thank you very much. Thanks.
The big theme for this evening is whether globalization is crumbling. Is it?
I think it's a little bit exaggerated. There are clearly headwinds. You see it politically. Brexit, Trump in the US, Marine Le Pen's success in France, Alternative for Deutschland in Germany. I mean, there are clearly headwinds, and there's clearly strong opposition building to globalization. Does it mean that the whole globalization thing is falling apart? I think that's a bit too early to jump to that conclusion. But there is political resistance, no question about it, and we have to deal with that. There's also, Eusebius, indications that economically globalization is running into trouble. For the first time in many years, global growth in trade is either very low or below 1%. Now, that's not ideal. You know, a country like South Africa, the whole world, but talking about South Africa, we need trade. We need to export more. We need to sell what we've got. And very difficult to do that if other countries shut down and other countries start buying less. So yes, the political headwinds, the economic headwinds, I wouldn't yet say that means the whole thing is coming unstuck. That I think is a bit quick.
If we use less melodramatic descriptions and said it was in crisis, or at least that not everyone benefits from the global system, the economic system and the political system, should the system be overhauled, whatever that might mean, or is it possible to just tinker here and there and have a more just international system?
We certainly need a more just international system. You also need more justice inside countries, not just internationally, but also internally. Can you do that with tinkering? I doubt. I think you need a more aggressive intervention. I think something like the Roosevelt intervention of the 1930s in the US, that sort of thing is I think is what is needed for. I'm not saying we should copy and paste what he did. That's not my point. My point is quite aggressive political intervention to drive things in a different direction, because otherwise you lose the majority of people. It's as simple as that. And your point about people staying behind or people having been left behind, A, it's absolutely true, and B, no democracy can afford that. You know, take it from yourself. If your income stays absolutely constant for 10 years, you're not going to be happy chappy. You're going to be very cheesed off, and we have to deal with that.
But then we're faced with two practical challenges, which Professor Sachs also alluded to in conversation with me. The one is we need good governance, and we need better returns on our investment in social outputs like education and health.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about the importance of politics in making sure no one gets left behind, many South Africans will roll their eyes, JP, because there's a lack of trust in whether this government has the political skill, the political will, and the ethical acumen to be able to steer us in their direction.
No, and that's absolutely valid. That's absolutely valid. In fact, just this afternoon, the Deputy Minister of Finance made exactly this point. Coming from a member of the government, he himself said, we don't have the political leadership to deal with our problems. I think that's absolutely right. But then in the end, you know, voters must also accept their responsibility. Consumers and workers and so on are also voters. And it's within their power to change the political leadership. You can't just look at the government and say the government is bad. Yeah, sure. But what are you doing to make a change? And I think it applies to more than just voting. You know, for one of the gratifying things the last couple of months is to see how business leaders are stepping up to the plate. We haven't seen this since the 1980s. In democratic South Africa, this is a new experience. And I think it's a very good one. Now, if we can have that cohesion and that energy in terms of jobs and human development and so on, then I think we can go somewhere.
Which leads me to my last question. Is big business in South Africa sufficiently concerned with inequality? I mean, it's great that they're finally finding a voice on political issues, but are they doing enough?
Well, I think the fact that they're working now on creating a fund that will invest money in small businesses, startups, I think that's a very real and concrete measure. The fact that they're working on training and scaling up training of artisans and so on, I think that's a very real measure. And that's on a collective level. Look, I think it's a very the answer to your question is very uneven. Some companies do more than others. That I think is just the reality. And some individuals do more than others. I think we should all step up to the plate. And we can. We've done it before. We've done it after the Second World War. We've done it after the recession of the 1930s. We just haven't done it in the new South Africa. We left everything to the state. The state must provide housing. The state must provide education. The state must do this. The state must do that. Well, for people who believe in free markets, we want to leave a hell of a lot to the state. You know, there's a kind of a contradiction there. So I think we should all step up to the plate, no question about it.
Generous as always. JP, thank you so much for being in conversation.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you.